Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my reaction to Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 8, The Reality War. That's Season 2 of the Bad Wolf era, of course, Season 41 overall, Series 15 since the revival. And at time of recording this, it's 9:41? 9:41 p.m. on Saturday the 31st of May, 2025. Although whenever this video goes out, it'll either be the last video of May or the first video of June 2025, depending on when it goes out. But filming wise, it's the last one of May 25 on this channel, or any of my channels. For this May, May 2025, wrapping up with the Doctor Who Season 2 Bad Wolf finale. And also being birthday month, it's a special month for me. May, I'll see you next year, 2026, for my 27th birthday then. And hello, June 2025, and look for my LGBTQA plus, etc. Followers, viewers, and friends. Happy Pride Month. And if June starts tomorrow, if this video does go out on May, it may for tomorrow through to the end of June. Right, so Reality War. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack here, and I think I have to save a lot of it for the review because spoilers. Massive spoilers. Although, to be fair, there is some stuff I can talk about that isn't terribly spoilery as well. But there is some massive spoilers, but what I can do is I can touch upon last week a bit more. But to be honest, last week wasn't, apart from a few shock surprises like Susan and Rogue's cameo and the Rani's reveal of the plan and who is underneath, the big reveal of who they're trying to find. Other than that, Wishworld wasn't actually too spoilery, all things considered. So yeah, it turns out that Omega is the person that the Rani is trying to find, and the bone creatures are actually antimatter, or created from the antimatter, or inspired by it. And interestingly, that the Wish World actually goes around in a loop. It's continuously May 23rd, so it's generating more of this energy so that they can get Omega out. And that's really interesting how that works out. Really, pretty interestingly, we got a couple of surprise returns. Not Susan or Rogue like last episode, but we got Anita from Joy to the World, and the Time Hotel is back, and also Rose Noble is back as well in supporting roles this episode. With Anita, she's the one who actually, spoiler alert, she's the one who helps the Doctor get out of the situation he's in. Basically answering the question of how will Doctor Who escape this one. Anita from the Time Hotel comes along and helps him out. By the way, she mentions she has a boss who says hi to the Doctor, so it looks like the boss will be carrying on a little. That tease is going to be carrying on a bit further along into the future, by the sounds of it. But anyway, this episode was actually very fast-paced for what ended up being the first 2/3, because after watching the episode Unleashed and also Blankety Blank, we then went back because I wanted to check who voiced Omega. So we had to go through the episode, and we were able to see where in the time, because when you're watching it, you don't actually check when in the episode you're watching it. If you're watching it on telly, if you're watching it on iPlayer, you can check it, or on Disney Plus. But on TV broadcast or on record, or well, we did on record playback, but even we kind of left that, so we didn't see it when watching it. But later we were able to see when in the episode certain things take place. And I have to say, considering that this episode is about 65 minutes, give or take, like last series' finale, they, like End of Time Part 2, which is 75 minutes, they get most of the stuff done within 2/3 of the episode, and then the last third is sort of like a victory lap for the era, for the Doctor, for the run, etc., sort of a thing. Basically, what Twice Upon a Time was, but that was an episode's runtime length. Okay, actually, no. Once Upon a Time was sort of an epilogue to the previous two episodes, rather than a victory lap. But yeah, End of Time Part 2's last 25 minutes was a bit of a victory lap for the 10th Doctor and RTD Era 1. And I suppose this one sort of feels a similar. I mean, it's not so much of the setting the same, but I might touch upon that in a bit. Or I'll touch upon it more in the review and or ranking. Um, but the point is, about two, considering that there was this episode had a lot to wrap up from not just from the previous episode or Interstellar Song Contest, but from the whole series and this entire Doctor's run, even RTD2 as a whole, if you count the boss and the gods and the bi-regeneration. And apart from the boss, they sort of touch upon that with the Doctor let loose the gods with Salt mentioned in the last episode, and then the Toymaker ascending to godhood from being a celestial being to becoming a god. And that's sort of what happened to Sutek and Omega. They started off as something a bit different, godlike beings, but not quite the same. And then they've been promoted to god status. I suppose the Trickster and the Mara to a lesser extent as well, but they haven't appeared on screen yet since their last appearances. They've just been mentioned. But yeah, funny enough, actually, excluding Omega and with the barber not actually being a god, we've only actually had two gods this series: Lux and um the baby here, Decky or something. Oh, they rename him Joseph at the end. So um anyway, but then in last series, I suppose only had two gods with Maestro and Sutek. So yeah, considering that this was supposed to be the era of gods and of the pantheon, and they've only really been about 5, 6 if you count the Toymaker so far, plus the barber working with the gods, um, plus a few mentions. Okay, I thought there was going to be more, like, Anansi was teased and the gods of Ragnarok were theorized. Of course, those didn't come to pass. Well, Anansi was close, but not quite. Um, yeah. What I will say is, I think Omega done here. This is probably the biggest departure from what they would like in the classic series, because they did, like I said, with them promoting them to godlike status, which Omega says I should have become a god in the Three Doctors. When with the Toymaker, it sort of makes sense, even though he's like a celestial being. I would have coined the term the Celestials, or because we had the Eternals from Enlightenment and the Immortals from Can You Hear Me? So I would have said with the Celestial Toymaker, I would have said the Celestials in the outer space and the space and time version, not the more Chinese implications that have led to the reputation of the Celestial Toymaker, the story, the implied racism from that story, whether intended or not. That's how it's been remembered. But in terms of a celestial being of the time space degree, then I would have coined that phrasing. But now he's become a god of the pantheon. Um, and Sutek was as well, even though beforehand he was one of the race of the Osirians, which inspired the Egyptian gods. And then after being put into the time vortex, he became a god and the biggest god of all. And now Omega, back under his world in his underverse, which is the underverse rather than the antimatter world now, he's now developed into god status, being down there after being trapped in that. And when they bring him back, for starters, he looks nothing like how he did in either Three Doctors or Arc of Infinity, or appearances in expanded media later, based on either of those two appearances, or in fan art and historical, like his drawings and pictures that have been used for either official archive of him or in fan art, more or less basing it on the Three Doctors version. And Yeah, he doesn't look like either of those. Although there was a rumored appearance that he was going to look like, and I have to say I'm glad we didn't get that version. But what we did get, well, it answers the question of where his body from Three Doctors went. But yeah, he kind of like just kind of a giant skeleton, and okay, at least Sutex being a big dog, at least that is somewhat connected to what he used to look like. This is, well, like I said, apart from answering the question of where did his body go, because his will and costume was all that was left of him in Three Doctors, because he lost his body to, oh yeah, the antimatter world, and that was and all that was keeping him around was his will, and that's why he wanted to get the Doctor's body in Arc of Infinity as well. But yeah, here he's a skeleton, a giant skeleton that, and they eat Time Lords. And the Rani's big plan was to rebuild Gallifrey using the biodata from him and making it Gallifrey in her and his image and so forth. Um, I won't go too much more spoiling into. But let's just say that only one of the Ranis makes it out of this story. I think that's safe to say. Spoiler: one of the Ranis does perish in this story. I won't say which one now. I'll wait for later. But let's say one of them does perish. You could probably if you've not seen the story, you could probably guess how from what I've just said. Otherwise, I'll find out in the review. um, but yeah, the other one escapes. So more popping up in the future by the looks of it. If the future, well, the future is apparently the BBC will go ahead and make season 3 with Bad Wolf. It's whether Disney will be involved is to be seen, and when they can get started on production. We'll see how about that, and whether we'll get a Christmas special this year or not. Yeah. I have to say, I think most this because this episode, I don't know if it wrapped up everything we wanted to know. Like, how did Mrs. Flood know? Like, why did she talk to the audience all the time, or every other time? And I didn't actually fulfill my theory about her making sure Ruby didn't know about her mother's identity until after Sutek was revealed. That's sort of kind of just implied in the story, in the text. It's sort of like it's just kind of sort of that's implied, but never fully outstated or whatnot. It just sort of happens. So yeah, I guess that fans are going to continue to dislike that after all. Even though this reveal could have if that theory was confirmed, then maybe it might have been maybe the people would have been like, okay, slightly makes a bit more sense. And especially with Ruby having that song in her, which sounds a lot like the Trix's theme. So unless the Trix is going to be next series' big bad, so we'll see how that goes. Most of this episode actually focuses more on Poppy and the Doctor and Belinda and everybody fighting to try and keep Poppy around. Supposedly she's made up from the wishes that they've created, but they don't want to let go of her, even though the Doctor's given the choice of, oh, he can stop the wish world if he helps bring back Gallifrey, and everything is set to normal. The Rani even says she'll let the humans go, which, okay, I mean, she was prepared to let them die in the first place, but if it's to get if it's a mean to an end, then maybe. But because they are so foot on the ground on keeping Poppy around, they've got to go around the long way. Even though it means that they still have to try and keep Poppy around, or try and bring her back later. So yeah, so you can blame Poppy for the end of the 15th Doctor's run. By the way, because biggest spoiler, although this was leaked online, fucking leaks. Yeah, this is the 15th Doctor's last episode. This is the last part 2 of the last story. Again, I'll touch more upon this in the review itself about why it happens, how it happens, and who he regenerates into. Although, if you've seen the fucking leaks, then you may have already been expecting it. especially with the expectation of there may be a regeneration, which kind of diminishes the point of it being a surprise regeneration. That was theorized by people as opposed to pretty much half expecting there to be one. Battle, please, BBC, Disney, or whoever co-streams next series, please, please, please keep a lid on the leaks next series. Last series wasn't so bad. I mean, there was some, but it wasn't so bad. This one, there has been leaks for every episode, and about 85% of them have been right to a degree. So, I just hope they're not, at least it's not as bad next series. Like, it's fun speculating whether these leaks are true or not, but if you are 80 to 5 ish, maybe 90% right, I mean, it's a very strong track record for this series. So if they're that accurate, and it doesn't turn out that this was all part of Mrs. Flood's plan, by the way, that some people were theorizing that these leaks were done deliberately, then yeah, what's the point of doing the big surprises then? You're going to be spoilt in advance. It's like if when the show itself showed like the Master coming back in Series 10's finale, they did it in the trailers and they announced it before the series started. But it would have been, how amazing of a surprise would it be at the end of World Enough in Time to discover that Razor was the John Sim Master? As great of a reveal as it was in the episode, and we weren't really we weren't really sure who was playing Razor, and then the reveal itself was really cool. But we still were also sort of expecting him to pop up at some point in the story. So, how amazing would it and shocking would it have been if he just they didn't renounce it, they didn't show him in the trailers, and Razor revealed himself to be the Johnson Master, and people were like, oh, after after the whole almost the whole episode of wondering, who's playing Razor? Have we seen them before? They look familiar. They sound familiar. And the same with the Guardians of the Edge of Doctors and other Doctor, even like the Bi-Generations and other Doctor and Time Lord appearances. Most of it's been kept under wraps, including some surprises towards the end of this episode. But yeah, the leaks need to stop, or at least be contained a bit more in its own, like smaller detail stuff, not big villain reveals or plot details. Especially since pretty much every episode has had some of, or at least most episodes have had quite big ones. So yeah, I can't really go too much into the ending without being too spoilery. All I will say is, like End of Time Part 2, they basically get the main conflict done 2/3 in, more or less, and then, which is interesting because this episode had so much on its plate, and it was able to wrap a good chunk of that up in like 35-40 minutes. Maybe even less, because on the record it started a bit before the episode started, so and was running to an hour and 15 as opposed to an hour and 5 or an hour and 10, so maybe even less than about the 35-minute mark, shall we say. And then the last 25-30 minutes is is a massive wind down and wrapping up the run at this Doctor's era as a whole, with how they get into the regeneration, as well as sorting out all the stuff with Poppy and a couple of other surprises, which don't serve the main narrative prior hand, but were nice to be included in this portion anyway. This is the more drama side of the finale, following the more epic stuff. Although Wishworld was sort of a fantasy drama as well, in a way. So we're playing with quite a few genres across these two episodes. Although we do get the answer of why the Rani was able to use those special powers in the previous episode's pre-title scene. It's to do with the baby god thing, and Ruby was able to do a bit of that as well. When she's in here, by the way, Ruby, whilst didn't really do an awful lot with Ruby and Shirley and the other disabled lady in the last one going to take down Conrad as teased, but they do work. They do get them back into their original positions pre-Conrad taking over the world, and Ruby gets some really great moments here. So this is Ruby's last episode, as well as 15th Doctor and Belinda's. She gets some great stuff to do as well. to wrap up her time on this show. Some great moments there, as does Belinda. She's really great. Although I think Ruby is probably steals the show of the two companions more so. That being said, Mel gets some great past appearance exposition on the Rani, and it's good to have her characters knowing about these other people. Like Kate knows from her father fighting Omega in the past. She knows about him. Mel knowing about the Rani and so forth. Last series they could have a character do that with Sutek, but I guess they didn't have Luke Smith on standby to say that, oh, my mum fought Sutek in the past. That's a shame. Actually, that is a missed opportunity. They maybe Luke Smith, because he does canonically work for units. They could have had him in the last series, series finale. Oh, but yeah. So yeah, most of the spoilery stuff I will have to save for the review. Hopefully later this week, maybe next week, or with next weekend maybe. I have rewatched Wish World, so I will rewatch this one as well before the review. So I can touch upon them, and then I'll watch every episode, including Joy to the World, for the rankings. That will probably come later in June. It might not come straight away, but it will, because I want to watch the episodes a third time, or fourth in Joy to the World's case. And Robot Revolution, actually. Watch them a fourth or third time, and then I'll be able to do the ranking properly. Although I think I have a rough, up to episode 6 at least. I need to work out what I'm doing with the finale, but up to episode 6, I've got a rough list of the other 7 episodes, including Joy to the World. It's just the last 2 is where I'm going to place them, and together. Although, to be honest, I think they'd be on a similar standing as each other, at the very least. I think I don't know, do I like this one slightly more than last week's episode? I think it's ones that have to be in a double barrel of viewing, and whilst I will watch them individually for the review, mainly to get those iPlayer viewings up so that they have separate episode viewings, but then back to back for the ranking, of course. But it's an interesting finale. It's better than last series. That's a guarantee from me anyway. I don't know if would I say it's the second weakest RTD finale? I don't know. I'll have to check if I prefer over End of Time or The Giggle. But definitely weaker than the first 4 finales, I would say. I think those 4 finales were ranged between brilliant to, in the case of the Series 1 finale, one of the all-time greatest stories ever made. I think I rank it 3rd now, actually. 3rd favourite. So, yeah, those 4 range from brilliant and a lot of fun and really well written to the 3rd greatest story of the whole show in one of them's cases. And then the other, the next, the specials finales, I have to see if I prefer this over to either of those 2. But I can say this is stronger than last series' one. So Empire of Death and Legend of Ruby Sunday remains the weakest RTD finale. And then again, I'm also going to have to line it up against all of the other finales, both from since 2005 and also overall. Spoiler alert, it would be above a couple of the Moffat ones, and I think I probably would take it over all the Chibnall ones. Yes, or at the very least the first 2. Moffat, I can definitely tell you that the first and the last Moffat ones are above it, of course. And then, it's out of I think Name of the Doctor is probably going to be above it. So it's out of the other 3, series 6, 8, and 9. There, it's below. So I think Moffat half's above, half's below. Let's say, and Chibnall, either all of them below, or at least 2 of them are, and 1 might be above. Oh, and if I conclude specials miniseries, Power of the Doctor probably would stay above. Time of the Doctor, again, I'll have to see. So actually, that means Moffat had 7 finales and Chibnall had 4. Okay, but did not. But yeah, that's if you code the specials miniseries. Right, so I shall wrap up here. Thank you for watching what will be the last Doctor Who reaction for a while by the looks of it, depending when season 3 comes around, or if you get a Christmas special. I'll do reactions for the war between the land and the sea, which is looking interesting, although that the new Sea Devil designs are a choice. I don't know if they're as bad as what they were looking in the leaked set photos, but yeah. I don't know. I think the 2022 redesign was better. If they managed to maybe merge the original design that the 2022 was inspired by, it was inspired by the 1972 version. If they were able to do that, but also like what they did with the Silurians in 2010 was to kind of merge the face into the mask and then maybe have the head set around it, around the back, then maybe that would have worked. But these are again, the monster redesigns are looking different, very different this era, and not even the kind of a new updated sort of difference like in the past. It's like we've had the new updated versions of the Sea Devils, or the other version or past older monsters are iconic looking, and this is what they're going with now. The only one that sort of has stayed the same has been, well, as well as the Meep and the Wrath Warriors, being taken from the comics to the screen, being accurate to the comics. Other than that, the most accurate monster appearance from the past has been the Silurians, or Silurian, plus also the Dalek in Destination Skaro. Oh yeah, 15th Doctor doesn't actually get to meet the Daleks at all. There's even this one scene where they go and where Nita's popping into past Doctor adventures, and one of them's Day of the Daleks, but the 15th Doctor doesn't even get to see a Dalek. It's Anita Washington, so yeah, so I guess 15th Doctor is now the first Doctor since Paul McGann's 8th Doctor to not see the Daleks on TV. You could argue also the 14th Doctor if you don't count the Children in Need special. Let's hope the 16th Doctor, when they encounter the Daleks, it will be sooner than later. Anyway, so I'll wrap this up now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for what could potentially be an incredibly long review of the finale. Hopefully not quite as long as the series 3 finale to review on the Retro channel, or either the original or revisitation review of the series 12 finale on this channel, in both cases. But it'll probably be maybe something along more of the lines of last year's finale, or something nearby, which I did for that review on Universals. So, yeah. By the way, no more season 2 reviews on Universals from me. Lux was the only one this year, but do check out the ones that will be popping up from other members when they're ready. At the time of recording, the Wish World one's not up yet, but do check out them anyway, and stay tuned for there's going to be one big one on War Between Land and the Seas by Thomas Hayden James, so do check that out when it comes around. And yes, I'll review that series episode and do a ranking at the end when that's done as well. I've been meaning to do the spin-offs as well for a long time. Technically, I did do Class on this channel, and I did Canine Company, but I've been meaning to do the Class ones again, revisitation style, and do Torch on here again, and then Torchwood SJA, Sarah Jane Adventures, and the Australian K9 series, including the Story Continues audios in Torchwood case, but I've just never gotten around to it. So maybe in the future. Maybe if we're going to be on a Doctor Who hiatus after War Between the Land and the Sea, maybe Christmas. But if we're going to be on a bit of a hiatus from the series for a bit, then maybe it'll be a good thing to go and do some spin-off reviews and finally knock those all out that I didn't get around to doing back in 2021 or 22 after finishing the series reviews up to the most recent episode, in which that case was Revolution of the Daleks, when I wrapped that up in May 21. So yeah, 4 years ago. So yeah, spin-offs should have been next, including the Class revisitations, besides Canine and Company, which I'd done when going through the Doctor order. But yeah, maybe I will get around to doing the Torchwood SJA and Canine reviews on the Retro channel, and the Class revisitation ones on this channel, maybe for its 10th anniversary next year, or ahead of its 10th anniversary. We'll see. Depends how I feel. Depends what happens. I would have quite a few episodes to watch for apart from Class, those other series, plus quite a few, a good couple of Story Continues audios for Torchwood, to tie in with that as well. Technically, series 6, 5, 6, and 7, and then Class is like 8 episodes. That's easy in comparison. But then again, Sarah Jane each series is between 3 and 6, so those wouldn't be too difficult to do either, I suppose. Anyway, so that'll be it from my reaction. Stay tuned for the Wish World / Reality War review on this channel, and then hopefully in the next week or week and a half, and then the season 2 Bad Wolf ranking later in June. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.